So in this task you will need, could be a first person, but third person works better. Third person template with the starter content. So I'm going to show you how to make a switchable light, which we're going to place here because it's in the shadow, and then we can see the light working a bit better. Do you think this is just thrown together? Anyway, so what we need to do is find an object that we can use to sort of base this activity on, and it can vary which object is best as your root object. In this case I'm going to choose the mesh that you see, although ostensibly there's a trigger box and a spotlight which is also part of this blueprint object. I'm going to use the static mesh because that's the thing that you want to sort of place in the level. So it's really what you're choosing to base the blueprint object on is really down to what it's going to be and how you're going to use it and how you're going to place it in the level. Okay, so blueprints are the major means by which you sort of control the interaction, the game mechanic, your environment, and how everything sort of communicates together. So one of the basicest things you can do is turn the light on and off. So we'll start with that and then work upwards in complexity to something not particularly complicated, but just a step above what we're going to do now. Okay, so I go into the props. So we're in the starter content, props, and in here somewhere there should be the ceiling light. Okay, so yeah, I know there's no ceiling. So I'm going to select this. Obviously, make your own mesh. Use anything, you know, just sort of hemisphere hanging in the air would do just as well. The nature of the mesh is not important. Okay, so there's many different ways to get this going, but I'm going to choose this way because it's sort of more obvious. So I'm going to right click and choose create blueprint using, and I'm going to accept this as the location of the blueprint. It's giving me the name of the mesh, which I'm not totally keen on, so I'm going to change that to BP for blueprint, and this object is going to be a sort of combination of 3 different components plus the blueprint control of them. Okay, so after a little wait, this is the blueprint editing zone. I'm just going to grow this up a bit. At the moment there's nothing in this blueprint that's actually in the level, and really that's the way it goes until the blueprint's sort of constructed and ready to test. So I'm here with this static mesh 1, which is the ceiling lamp. So I'm going to rename that to seal lamp, and from the limited bit of programming and scripting I've done, there's a lot of use of this sort of combination of words delineated by an uppercase letter. It's called camel caps because it arranges a hump in the middle of 2 words. Okay, so seal lamp. Now we need a couple of other things, and those things are the trigger box and the actual spotlight itself. Now we can't see them here, we can't see them themselves because this is where the blueprints are edited. So we need to go to the components to show the items that will sort of appear in one way or another in the level, or be situated in the level. So here's our ceiling lamp, and we need to add the other couple of components. So the first one let's hunt down the light first. So if we scroll down to spotlight. So your blueprints are really, in terms of the class blueprints anyway, they're the early part of them, your usage of them, they're a combination of objects that are in the content browser or objects that are sort of default parts of Unreal, like a box or a type of a light, as this is. So I've actually got an opportunity to name this right now, so I'm going to call this seal spot. Which you might have to watch out for is using things which are sort of obvious names for things and part of Unreal's architecture. But I think I'm safe ground with this combo, seal spot. And now we just need to add another component, which is a default object, part of sort of Unreal's makeup, if you like, is the box. So although it's just defined as a box here, almost as soon as we start using it, it becomes then a trigger box. Nonetheless, I'm going to give this one of my trig for spot sort of names. Although it doesn't really turn up under that name, it'll only ever be known by the blueprint name when it's in the level. It can later on when you're looking through the components to find out what you've done. Okay, so I've got a bit of adjustment to do. The trigger box obviously is not big enough, so that needs to be several sizes bigger. What you'll find is the root object, you can't move the root object or scale it or rotate it or anything. It's sort of because it's the root object, if you need to move it, rotate it or scale it, you do that in the level, and everything else, you know, in this case the spotlight and the trigger box, those things need to be in the right place relative to the ceiling lamp itself, the mesh. Okay, so the trigger box needs to be bigger, and you can do that by using the standard scaling transformer, which you can do by cycling through the tools using the spacebar. And you can also use WER, so it's like 3ds Max's controls for move, rotate and scale in that sense as well. So that's just me moving around the interface a bit. I want to scale it pretty much uniformly, and then I'll need to move it down, because obviously the ceiling lamp was going to be higher than Jim. The ceiling lamp will be higher than the box needed to trigger its. Yeah, my computer needs updating. So move the trigger box down. And the other thing that needs to change is the orientation of the spotlight. And again, if I select the spotlight, hit the rotate to get the other axis, we should be able to twizzle this 90. It's using the sort of default angle snap settings, so I shouldn't need to fiddle around too much. And yes, the lamp needs to move down as well. It just needs to sit pretty much in that dome at the bottom of the shade. So that's the components placed and named, and now we need to probably get busy with the, just move down and make sure it's sort of all right. Probably need to get busy with the changes to the scripting now. I'm just going to tweak the angle down a bit. Okay, so it's a bit more concentrated. Okay, and oh, let's have the raise the intensity. That looks like quite a high number, but you'll see that it's still fairly faint in the brightness of the scene daylight. Okay, so that's the component setup. Let's go to graph. Okay, now using our components we can get the right selection of possible event or options or functions relative to whatever it is we're choosing. So on trigger spot, what we want is to think about this in a kind of progressive way. So the first thing that happens is player moves into the trigger box. Okay, so if we right click that and go add event, this list of events here is what should happen for our trigger box. I say trigger box, it's just a box, and because we're adding this event, it becomes a trigger box. Okay, so there's the first thing. Okay, and while we're at it, we might as well have, there's begin overlap, we might as well put the end overlap on. Okay, and push those off to the left using the right mouse button. Okay, and then what we need to do is choose our spot. And take the first execution wire out. So left click out to a spot, and then as we let go, we can choose under rendering, and you start to look, and then you find there's far too many. Right? So the easier thing to do is, especially when you know what you're doing, which might be conveying that impression, is to do a toggle visibility. Now that's the name of the instruction we need to put in there, but I've got my context sensitive on and it's not showing me anything at all. So within the context of what I've chosen, the toggle visibility can't be chosen. Okay, so we need to try this another way. So I'm just going to left click in space, and let's go back to this spot here, and let's go right from that one, add event, and that's no good either. Okay, so let's try dragging that in. Okay, and when we drag a reference to the spotlight itself, we get two choices. One to get it, so whatever it is, and one to set it. Now, if we set it, that will just mean we've got some idea of what else it should be, but if we get, it's just a reference to what it is already. So apply that in. And now let's drag off and see what we can do here. Okay, actions taking spotlight component reference. That sounds a bit better. So let's try toggle. And there we go, toggle visibility. So put that in. And now what we've got is just what we want. We've got the execution. And both of these go to the same endpoint. Don't really know what these are. Exec, we'll call it an exec node or something or other. Anyway, so it says when you go into the box, go into the trigger box, it sends an execute message out to toggle the visibility of what? The target, of course, which is ceiling spot. So this blueprint actually references the mesh. It has no control over the mesh. So the mesh is like the root object in this case, and it's just sort of the thing on which all the other things hang. Okay, now there's one thing I need to do before we go back to the test it, and that is actually to make sure that the light, the spotlight, starts off. Let's go back to components and select spotlight, and we're looking down here for, well, it's visibility with toggling, and we want to see that when it starts in the level that its visibility is false. Okay, when you do a bit more scripting through Blueprint, you'll get quite a bit of use out of these sort of tickable properties, because they're very easy to set using a little bit of Blueprint. Not everything has a toggle, by the way, but so we're quite lucky in this case. Anyway, I think that's done. I think that's set up, ready to rock and roll. We've got the intensity sorted out. Oh, now, once you've sorted out your graph, and it's all connected up and makes the right references, etc., then you can go compile. And you get the tick if it's good. Obviously, it can still be compiled successfully and still not work. But anyway, let's see what we got. Now, I don't think I mandated where this should have been placed, which is a bit daft. So might take me some time to find this. I think it went back to blueprints, did it? There we go. And I can tell this is the one I've been working at, because it's got the little asterisk there for to remind me to save it. Okay, so I'm going to drag this out and put this in the level. It may take some time. Let's try that one again. I think I caught it a bit on the hop. There we go. Okay, so there's the first edition. Now it's in a blueprint, which is a sort of thing of itself. We can use it wherever we might want to. So I'm going to make sure it blasts down at the ground there. So I think that's all good. I'm just going to go in a little bit closer. Can probably move that. That trigger box for even further down. Anyway, I should be able to knock my head on it and see it working. Okay. Let's go for a play test. I've got this set to play in a new editor window, which is just lasts as long as you're playing the game and before you hit the escape key. Okay. Okay, so run towards. It's going to be pretty jerky because the video recording isn't helping. So, oh dear. Now, there's a number of. Oh, there we go. It just didn't get close enough. There we go. And as I leave the books. Okay, so that's it. Bit of a relief, so that a few tweaks could be made to make it better, but you get the idea. So just leave you with a quick look at the blueprint. Right, so add events for your trigger box. Begin and end overlap. The thing you're looking for is based on a reference to your spotlight. So you drag a reference to your spotlight to here, and then you pull off a wire from its connection point. Left click, drag a wire out, and then from the box of different functions, expressions and other bits of blueprint language, you should be able to find a toggle visibility. That should do the trick. Okay, more to come. We'll do a pickup next, I think.